So, hello everyone. How's it going? Today we're going to be talking about the differences between private and public schools. I know a lot of you guys are on the edge of when you guys are enrolling your kids and you don't know which route you guys want to take. And to be frank with you guys, it's the ultimate choice is going to be yours. We're going to try to give you as much information as we possibly can to help you make that final decision, but that final decision will ultimately be up to you. And then we'll give you advice on social circles, extracurricular activities, parental mindsets, and everything like that. And can you type in me if you are one of the parents that are deciding between private and public schools? So just type in ME in the chat. Okay, awesome, Rishi. Hopefully we could help you out with a little more information today. Awesome, Kai. All right, so let's get started. I see some of you guys are interested in this topic. So before we get started, I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Jimmy Human. I'm the business development specialist at Think Academy. I'm also a third grade math competition teacher, and I was born and raised in San Jose, California. So I know a lot about the area. I'm very familiar with all the schools in San Jose and around San Jose. I personally went to public school my whole life. I went through the public school route, but I also took a lot of extracurricular classes outside of school. So I am knowledgeable in both of those. And also, I do have a lot of friends and family that went the private school route. So I was able to get some knowledge based on that stuff that I could share with you guys today. And here at Think Academy, we're working on a research project, basically researching and interviewing parents, talking to different parents, getting different mindsets on public schools and private schools, and then basically trying to relay this information to you guys just so that you guys can make the best decision for your children. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing that we're going to go over is parental personal experience. So the parents' personal experience and how they feel. So we interviewed a bunch of different parents that went to both private and public schools. So they have firsthand experience on both of them. So they gave us a lot of good information that I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So our first parent, which is a parent A, so they said that the biggest difference between private and public school is the progress in learning, right? So they mentioned that putting their child in a good public school, but also on the side they were taking extracurricular classes, they felt is more effective than private school learning. So it ultimately depends if you guys as parents have that extra time after school and have that extra time to devote towards extracurricular things outside of school. And this parent, in fact, did, and he saw a huge effectiveness with this going to a public school along with that outside educational programs. And now for the second parent, so the second parent transferred from private school to public school. He made the transfer in second grade, and he also mentioned that his children are busy children. He used the word naughty, which is a little funny, but he used the word naughty so that to basically let us get a gauge on how his students are. And he felt that in private schools that they're really strict. So the students didn't feel comfortable at school. They would always be getting in trouble. And after the transfer back to public school, he seemed to fit better at the public school. So public schools are more relaxed and they may be more inclusive for such children. So if your children's a very active student or doesn't know the difference between right and wrong yet, then public school definitely is a lot more inclusive than private school. At private schools, they're really strict on your behavior and they focus on characteristics learning. So that's a huge thing that you guys will that's a huge thing that you guys will need to take account for when you guys do make this decision. And then our third parent said one of the things that he was worried about in the first grade was that his student had not formed his own values yet, and he hadn't really learned the difference between right and wrong. So he noticed a few behavioral aspects of students in public schools that his child adapted, and his child was bringing home a few of these like bad actions and using them at home. Like he said that a couple of his classmates were using profane words or using a lot of profanity. So the student came home and then started using those words. And then as soon as this parent saw that, he immediately transferred his child to private school. Because again, they're a lot more strict at private schools, and they will not allow you to use any profane words. Whereas public schools, they're a little more lenient. They won't allow you to use profane words right in front of them, but they're not as strict on stuff like that. So, and our last parent is a parent that transferred their child from a private school to a private school. So I know a lot of you guys have heard of Challenger and Basis. Those are two very popular private schools in our area. And this student was in 6th grade. And he did this because of the difference in what the schools provide. So at Challenger, he felt that he had a good experience in the lower grades, but Basis seems to focus on STEM subjects a little bit more later in the grades. So although he really enjoyed the English classes and felt that the classes were really good up until about 3rd or 4th grade, once they really started dialing into like STEM subjects, then that's when he felt the need to change to Basis school. And then he said that the resources at Basis are a lot better than at Challenger, just because this parent was more focused on these STEM subjects. So another thing to go off of is, when choosing a different private schools, you're going to have to decide what you want your child to focus on, because each of these different private schools, they focus on a bunch of different aspects of learning. And we'll go a little bit more deeper into that a little later, but that's just one thing to keep in mind. All right. And now we're going to go over understanding the differences between private and public schools. So a quick little overview about public schools. I know a lot of you guys know this already, but obviously public schools are free and they are funded by the government. But one thing that you guys might not know is that a large portion of public school funding comes from property taxes from around the area. So that's extremely important, and we'll dive a little bit deeper that in the next few slides. But just to give you that, and also there's a lot of basic information about public schools in all the districts. If you go onto the CDE official website, they have everything. Everything is public information. So they have like the ethnic composition or state exam results or whatnot. So if you are looking to go the public route, you can compare and contrast all these different little things on the CDE official website. And then it's also good to look at test scores on that website as well. A lot of parents say they use that website to see which public schools are scoring the best on these certain state exams. So that's a good thing to keep in mind as well. All right, now, so for public schools, there is enrollment is open to everyone basically. So there's certain areas that you may live in, and then there's certain boundaries around schools. And then if you live within those boundaries, then you're going to be assigned to that school. And then there are also things called lottery schools for schools like CLIP, Bullish Charter, Feria, Murdoch Portal. And there's three or four of them in the Cupertino area that I just named. And these schools are top of the line school. They have a huge, everyone knows about these schools, and the admission is determined by lottery. So it's all luck of the draw. And the lottery process usually takes place from January to February. But like I said, it's a little bit harder to get into these schools just because there is lottery. It is the lottery style. So they are definitely harder to get into compared to regular public schools. All right, now a main thing that draws parents away initially when they're talking about private schools is the tuition, right? So the tuition can cost anywhere from $13,000 to $60,000. But the one good thing is that there's no residency requirements, so anyone can apply to these. And if as long as it's a driving distance from you, then you shouldn't have any problem with going to that school. And then every school has different application processes. So for generally, the application process opens in September. So like this last week, we saw a lot of application processes open. And so if you are looking to sign up your kid into a private school or apply to a private school, I'd suggest you guys start doing so or looking into it about now, because we have a few students that are already acting on that. And then the application materials must be submitted by December. There's strict deadlines that these schools have, and you could usually find these on their school website. And then usually after the application, you submit your application, and then if you are chosen to take a parent interview, then you will most likely have to do so. Like I said, all the schools are different. So you would have to take either a family interview or a parent interview or a student interview or some type of interview where they question you guys. And then you would also take like a placement test or an entrance exam. So a lot, like I said, all these private schools, they have the different ways of admitting their students in. But for the most part, it's all going to start September to December is the time that you definitely want to look at these things. And one thing to keep in mind is the most vacancies are usually typically available for every entry level grades. So what I mean by that is for the elementary private schools, like the main grade that has the most vacancies is going to be your kindergarten class, because that's the entry level class. And for middle schools, it's going to be either 6th or 7th grade, depending on what grade they start at. So these are going to have the most vacancies, and with more vacancies, you have a better chance at getting into that school, right? So, and along with high school, it's going to be the 9th grade. So if you are trying to get into school or into a private school, those are the classes that, or the grades that are going to have the most vacancies. All right. And then also, if you want more information about private school applications and the process of that, we're going to have a complete guide on a breakdown on different schools on how to apply to these different schools. And you could scan this QR code. I'll leave this up for about 20 seconds. And if you guys want to scan it, then go ahead and do so. It's going to be another webinar just like I am doing now, except for it's going to be a complete breakdown on school applications. All right. Awesome. And then if anyone didn't have a chance to scan that, can you type in the chat real quick if you want me to go back? All right. Looks like we're good. Okay. So touching on a major topic about private schools is the tuition, right? It's the deciding factor is usually based on the tuition. The tuition ranges it's so broad that you have so many different options, and parents usually turn that option of going to a private school down just because of how expensive these tuitions are getting. So I broke down the tuition into 5 different categories. So the first one is going to be the affordable, but they have campuses everywhere. So the first school is going to be Stratford. They have 26 different campuses in California, and a lot of them are in the Bay Area. And then we also have Challenger, who also has 10 different campuses. And these are going to range from anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000. Next, we have our religious oriented schools. And just because it says religious oriented, right, it doesn't mean they're going to force your student to follow that religion that they teach at that school, but it's more like educating them. And I have had friends that are a different religion and they went to Christian school, and really they just work on your morals of becoming a better human being more than pushing you to follow that certain religion. So going off of that, we have Valley Christian, Saint Simon, and Sacred Heart Catholic School. And these are going to range anywhere from $13,000 to $15,000. And then next we have our niche high quality schools. And these are 2 schools that I personally visited a few times. and they have amazing extracurricular classes. Like when I went, they had students coding things, or they had students building workshops, and these kids are all in elementary school. So that is something that's definitely to keep in mind of, is what the school provides and what kind of classes the school provides, and what classes that you would like your child to take. And these schools cost around $35,000 to $40,000. And then next, we have our elite private schools, right? So we have the Nueva School, Harker School, and Sacred Heart School. And I'm sure all of you guys have heard of these schools. They have the biggest profile, and a lot of big colleges, they will look for these schools, and they just have a really good profile. And these schools cost around $35,000 to $45,000 and a year. And this is gonna be our last section, is going to be a new emerging private school, which is called Avenues, the World of Schools. And this is actually a school that was based out of New York, and they have locations all over the world. And they recently came to the Silicon Valley, and they're based out of San Jose now. They have a campus in San Jose. And I heard a large range of different sorry, Archbishop Midi. Sorry, I just saw your comment in the chat. Yeah, we'll go over that in a second. So Avenues has a definitely it's a school that's came to San Jose, and it's has a everyone it's definitely, sorry, my screen just froze. Can you guys hear me still? Can you type 1 if you can hear me? Okay, perfect. All right, so Avenues is a school that just came to San Jose, and they are emerging from New York, and they are an extremely expensive school. It's one of the most expensive schools in the Bay Area now. And it's become one of the a huge school that just came to San Jose. Sorry. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. All right, back on track. Okay, so now a main thing that parents don't take into account for is the funding for public schools, right? So a lot of the public schools, they get their funding from property taxes. And then so it's, if you look at like areas that have expensive housing and expensive property, then it's going to bring in more property tax revenue for the city. And then these cities are going to allocate this funding to the schools. So what that means is, if you look at areas that have, areas that have expensive houses and expensive properties, then those schools are generally going to have more extracurricular activities for their kids. They're going to have more they're going to be able to give their students a lot more, and they're going to be able to pay their teachers more. They're going to be able to provide a lot more for the students. So that's one thing to take into account for, that is to look in the area where you are looking to send your child at, if you are looking into public schools. All right. And then another thing that to take account for is how the teachers get paid. So the teachers get paid for public schools. And if we look at the difference between the teacher pay in public school and private school, we would automatically assume, or at least I would automatically assume, that the salaries for private schools are going to be a lot higher than the private school teachers, right? So over here, we notice that Palo Alto gets paid actually a good amount for their teachers. And then one thing that we did realize is that the public school teachers, some of them actually make more than a lot of the private school teachers. And why, we don't know exactly why, but this also shows like that these public schools are actually devoting a lot of money into the public schools. And then so here we have a list of all the different school districts and the average salaries. And here we see Palo Alto. And one thing that I did notice is that Palo Alto has the highest average salary. And then I also noticed that Palo Alto is the #1 ranked school district in the San Francisco Bay Area. So they definitely have a correlation. I don't know if it's an exact correlation, but it definitely correlates on how much they're spending on teachers to their rankings in as a school district. All right, now the next thing we're going to look into is some faculty strength stuff. So how do public schools recruit teachers? Because that's a huge thing when you are talking about who is going to be taking care of your student, who's going to be teaching them and whatnot. So for public schools, they must hold a teaching certificate and must graduate from an approved college education program. And then for private schools, only about 70% of these teachers require a license or hold a license actually. And then so this shows that the public schools are a lot more strict on who they hire and their credentials of hiring. And public schools also have teacher unions, and they also get their tenure. So in California, the tenure can be achieved just after 2 years of working at a certain school and through the appropriate evaluation process. So the advantages to this is that in public schools, that they have extremely good job stability because they are in the union and they do have their tenure. They get treated very well, and there's not a lot of movement. Whereas in private schools, there's a lot of movement with teachers. So I just recently talked to a school, and they were going to open up a class for a certain grade level, and then this teacher was supposed to teach it, and then right before it was about to start, this private school teacher, she left the school. So it's definitely something to look at when you talk about who's going to be teaching your students. And due to the tenure system in public schools, there's a sense of complacency that makes it challenging to improve teaching quality. So the teachers seem to get complacent. So that would be one of the biggest disadvantages of having this good treatment and strong job stability. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the curriculum offerings, the learning pace, and the habit cultivation. So in public schools, we have this thing in the US called Common Core, right? So the Common Core also follows a rule or an act. It's called the No Child Left Behind Act. And it emphasizes that every child could receive the same education. And this is kind of a baseline of what public schools follow. And it's just like the bare baseline, basically. And then, but this is also could be a disadvantage because they're creating this baseline. A lot of students are dragged down by it. So the curriculum in public schools need to be aligned with the national curriculum, which results in a lower flexibility and a lower pace. And then here I have a little roadmap of the Common Core and just public school education system. So in the kindergarten through 8th grade, they're just going to be doing the regular Common Core. And then the 9th grade, they're going to be doing Algebra 1. The 10th grade, they're going to be doing geometry. The 11th grade, they're going to be doing Algebra 2. And then the 12th grade, they're going to be doing calculus. But the one problem that I see here is that 12th grade, they're working on pre-calculus, but then they don't have any time after that to work on AP classes, right? So usually a lot of the parents want their kids to take AP classes, but if you're doing pre-calculus in the 12th grade, then the next year you're already going into college, right? So they don't have any time to take these AP classes, and this makes their progress a lot more sufficient. So now, if you are a parent that is interested in taking AP classes, here's the route that your student's most likely going to be taking, right? So here we have the 6th grade. We have our pre-algebra. 7th grade is going to be Algebra 1 already. Grade 8, they're going to be learning geometry, and then Algebra 2, and then pre-calculus. And then 11th grade, their junior year of high school, they're going to be taking AP Calculus BC. And the 12th grade, they're going to be taking AP Statistics. And then this shows that the advanced placement test, in order to take these AP classes, you have to be about 2 years in advance if you do want to get through 2 of these classes. All right. And then now, if you are interested in going into public schools, the main thing that you want to do is to plan ahead, and you want to coordinate you want to be able to teach your kid keep these kids to a certain level of learning. And this is going to be all these different after school programs is one way to keep them up and running to the level that private schools are working on, right? So if you are interested in after school programs, and we do have a math trial class that's coming up, and you could scan this QR code right here. And here we have all kinds of different math classes from all the way from pre-K to Algebra 1. And we have an amazing faculty, we have amazing teachers, and all of our programs teach at least 1 to 2.5 years ahead of their grade levels. So this, if you are going to a public school, then this will definitely keep your student up to par with these private schools. All right, and now here, just because that you guys, if you guys decide to go to a public school, right, doesn't necessarily mean that your student's going to be falling behind of these private schools, because every school district has their own fast track, right? They have a public school fast track. So like in Palo Alto, Saratoga, and Cupertino, and Los Altos, those are some of the best school districts in the San Francisco Bay Area. And they all have really good fast tracks. So they do keep up, not as fast as private schools, but they can definitely are a lot faster than the core curriculum classes. All right. So in public schools during middle school, different progress tracks are offered. So depending on the child's situation, they can start learning high school content very early, which is very important. But planning needs to be done early in the lower grades. So like in the lower elementary grades, you should be, if you do want your kid to take that fast track, then you should be aiming to get your student a grade or two ahead in the lower grades. And in private schools, there's no requirement to follow the Common Core. So it offers a lot more flexibility in progress and is generally faster, especially in STEM subjects. And then parents involved in monitoring progress is somewhat reduced. So what that means is, if you are taking a private, or if you are in public schools, and then you do want to keep up with that track record of private schools, then you're going to have to, parents are going to have to add in a lot of extracurricular programs and classes and whatnot, so that just to keep them up to par with these private school students. So if you have the time to put into that as a parent, then it could be just as effective as going to private schools. Whereas private school parents, they don't really need so much involvement in monitoring the progress, because the school does it for them basically. So as you can see here, we have the grade 6, they're taking pre-algebra, grade 7, algebra 1, and grade 8 geometry. The school is already taking care of pushing them ahead of Common Core, either a year or to 2 years. And so that is one thing to keep in mind when you are choosing between both the private and public schools. And compared to public schools, there's a more systematic assessment and homework system, laying a strong foundation for higher grades. So the private schools are definitely more systematic about how they do assign different assignments. And it's overall, the parents have told me that they have built a better foundation than they would have in public schools. And then here we have, I'm not sure if any of you guys ever heard of Saxon or Math in Focus. Can you type a 1 if you've heard of any of those? Saxon and Math in Focus. Oh, so you guys have. Okay, so yeah, here we have the breakdown, right? So Stratford, as you guys can see, Stratford and Challenger, Basis, and Harker. Harker goes off the P3, and then Basis is also an amazing school. Here we could see here that they are definitely working at least 1 to 2 years ahead than private schools do. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And then now, the pace of middle school learning is crucial, and the difference in the depth of learning progress between public and private school does definitely exist, but it could that gap, that learning gap, could definitely be narrowed in if you are a public school student by adding in these extracurricular classes, right? And then our recommendation is, if you do go to public school, is to try to align your students or your child's learning progress standards of a private school, and then align it with that private school, right? And then try to maintain a good depth of learning. And if you are keeping up with that private school learning, then I don't see what the problem is with going to a public school if you could keep that same level of learning for a lot cheaper, right? And now for what's important for a lot of parents is the student to teacher ratio. So in private schools, they usually have an average of 10 students per teacher. And in public schools, they have 30 students per teacher, right? So this is almost 3 times as many students that the teacher is going to have to tend to or teach. And this is one thing that a lot of private school parents really love, because their students could really get the attention that almost not one-on-one learning, but as close as you could get to it, right, for a school. And then the curriculum is a lot different too between the two private and public schools. So private schools, they have a lot of specialized subjects. Then they do their main subjects, but they also have a lot of like computer classes, debate, language, a lot of different language classes, and then a lot of classes that are actually teaching in different languages, right? And then whereas the public schools, they prioritize just the main subjects, just your standard math, science, history, English, and whatnot. And then also, lastly, one thing that parents do love is everything that comes with going to a private school, including their facilities, right? So the private school facilities are at the top of, they're relatively superior than public schools, rather than public schools have ordinary facilities. Like here, we have a bunch of different facilities that Sacred Heart School has. So as you can see here, we have our aquatic center, our field house, our sports center, pavilions, a couple pavilions. We have all of our different fields and courts. And then we have our assembly halls, art building, art center. So there's so much so much more that private schools provide for their kids. So if that's something that you prioritize, then that's definitely something that would be appealing to you, is how much they provide for them. Now it's time to match the school values. So an important thing when choosing a different private school is a lot of these different private schools, they prioritize certain things in learning, right? So whether it's social learning or STEM learning, all these different schools, they actually really focus on one thing, and then the rest come behind that focus. So at Challenger, their main focus is learning like subjects related to humanities and social sciences. And one thing about Challenger that I think I mentioned a little bit earlier is that at a younger age, they have a really good like English foundation classes, right? But as they get older, they start lacking in the STEM classes. Whereas BASIS, on the other hand, they are a really fast-paced, they have a really fast-paced curriculum. And at the highest level at BASIS is actually like the highest level at any school. So as the fast pace at BASIS is going to be faster than the fast pace at Harker, the fast pace at St. Andrews, Challenger, all the different schools. And they're really STEM focused. So if that's something that you would want your kid to go into, then BASIS is definitely a good option. And then Harker is like what we call the most well-rounded school, right? It has a comprehensive range of activities, and they offer just about everything that every class or every public school or private school offers. And then St. Andrews is a little bit different. They don't really focus on STEM or humanities or social science. They focus on something called SEL, which is a social emotional learning, right? And they emphasize the importance of being a kind and compassionate child. So they work more on your character rather than your actual like learning progress, right? So that's also one thing. If that's something that's really important to you, then that is something to look into. So for college acceptance, so our top private schools such as Harker and Basis, which are two of like the most elite schools in our area when it comes to private schools, they provide a substantial boost in college acceptance rates, right? So, and then we did a little bit of research, and for the UCs, these two schools surpassed all the other private schools by at least 10%. Harker had almost a 90 something acceptance rate into UCs. But when we're talking about mid-level private schools, there wasn't really an increase in college acceptance rates versus public schools when it came to UCs, right? So it's hard to get information about that's accurate because they don't include like, are these students applying to Ivy League schools, or are these students applying to state schools? It's like a lot of different schools. But as far as UCs specifically, the mid-level private schools didn't have any advantage over the public schools. And then one thing that we did notice, though, is private schools, no matter what private school you went to, they all tend to score higher on placement tests and entrance exams. And this gives students the ultimate advantage because that's what colleges are looking for, right? So, and then a few perspectives to look over is for young children, cultivating good habits is extremely important. And then do you as parents have time to help your children grasp academic progress like outside of their school? There's a lot of different math programs in math and science that if you are going to a public school that you can put your kid in order to keep ahead of that Common Core level. And yeah, if it all depends, it's all going to depend on if you are willing to spend that extra time if you want to maintain that high level, right? If that high level doesn't really if that high level isn't really important for you, then public school route is completely okay. But if you do want to maintain that high level of academics, then you're definitely going to have to put your student inside of those extracurricular classes. And then now, what are your guys' expectations from the school? So every single school offers different focuses, right? So it all depends on what is the best fit for you as a parent. What do you want the school to focus on with your child? And then doing this will definitely help narrow down your options. If it like again, so like if your main focus is STEM, then look at Basis. If your main focus is on like societal learning, then Challenger would be definitely a good option. But the main thing is to know what you guys want as parents and then see what all the schools offer you and then narrow down your results. It'll definitely narrow down your options. And I just want to say thank you guys for all coming. If you have any questions, then you could just leave them down in the chat. I am going to go over them right now. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat for a little bit, but I'll start looking at them. Which public school districts allow more AP courses early? Lot of every single public school allows AP classes early. So it's just all depends on if your child is ready for those AP classes, right? And then another thing is it's not really about the school district when you're talking about public school. It's more like what level he came out of middle school and into high school at, right? So if he is just at the general level and he's coming in ninth grade and he's at the core curriculum level, then it's going to be a lot harder for him to jump a level or two in 1 year in order to be able to take those AP classes. How do you think about the mid-rank Cupertino elementary schools and private schools? I think Cupertino has amazing schools. They have some of the best schools. So, in my opinion, like what people call mid-rank Cupertino elementary schools are actually really good schools, even if you're talking about public and private schools, right? So, like a mid-rank Cupertino school is probably a high-ranked public school somewhere else, right? But any specifics that you wanted to know? And same with the private schools. They're all really good in Cupertino. Cupertino has some of the best schools when it comes to math and whatnot. Does public schools allow to take advanced classes? Yeah, so public schools do allow you to take advanced classes, especially in math. So I remember when I was in math class, they offered us a long range of classes, and they also for some of the really advanced student, some of our students would go to the sorry, some of our students would go to a high school that was near us, and they would take a math class over there. So it just all depends on which school you're looking at. You could definitely look on their website to see what classes they provide. But for the most part, public schools will not hold you back from working ahead, right? It's all about if the student could handle it, and if the student was planning, if the parents were planning to do it at a younger age, and if they did take those right steps. Do you have more information on tessellation in terms of admission, math curriculum, and college admissions? So I do not, Flora, I don't have any information on those two schools, but we are having a webinar in terms of admissions. I'm not sure if you saw the QR code, but I could definitely ask them to take note of those two schools and then maybe add them on there. Oh, wow. My son goes to Eaton Elementary and they have no homework. Do you have any suggestions of public schools in the San Jose area? What, Kai, what are you like the South San Jose, North San Jose, East San Jose? There's a lot of good schools in San Jose, but if you're talking about like Cupertino area, then the lottery schools are the best schools that you could possibly go to in the public realm. So like Murdoch Portal and Clip and Bullock or something Bullis. Let me see. South San Jose. So Kai, South San Jose is actually where I grew up. And so it's really limited on schools, right? So you have your Santa Teresa, you have your Oak Grove, and then Evergreen, but that's kind of up the hill towards the east side a little bit more. But I went to Santa Teresa and I thought it was an amazing school. They do have good good classes where you can get ahead, a lot of amazing AP classes. And yeah, but if not, if you are looking for like something around the area, I know a lot of my friends did go to a private school in South San Jose, or it's towards South San Jose. They went to Valley Christian, and that's definitely a good school, and it's on the cheap side too. So, will a video be available? Yeah, Robert. A recording of this webinar will be emailed to your emails. No problem. Thank you guys all for coming. And I'll stay here for a few more minutes if anyone else had any questions. Can elementary school child take any advanced math classes school or high school? Not directly. I don't think you can just go up into a middle school and high school and ask them if they take classes. But what I was talking about for my middle school was that they had a plan work. So during one of the periods in our middle school, they would send the advanced students on a bus, and they would take a bus to the high school to take one class, and then they would bus back. So it was part of their little system that they already had. But as far as elementary schools doing it, I don't think so. But I think the important thing, if you are going to a public elementary school, is adding in those extracurricular classes that push them ahead of core curriculum. So that's definitely something that's very important that parents don't really think about how important it is, because you have to do it at such an early age. Like if you're looking to do it in middle school, it might already be a little on the later side of starting it. But our advice is start them with the extracurriculars as early as possible, because if you get that jump at an early age, then you'll consistently have that gap between your learning progress and core curriculum. Yeah, Bobby, that's where I'm from, so I'd be happy with that. Work a little bit closer from home. You mentioned middle level private schools don't make admissions. What about basis that is STEM focused? Mention that middle level private schools don't make admission. Yeah, so basis is actually we consider them a higher end school. So I wouldn't consider them a middle level private school at all. So basis and Harker and those schools, they have a huge gap from, or not huge gap, I would say, but from what I saw from at least the UCs, I can't talk about for every single school, but I saw statistics on the basis admission rate for UCs, and it was at 90 something percent. Whereas the regular mid-level private schools, it was more at 70, 75%. So it's definitely a big jump going to a STEM focused school like that. That's very advanced, like Basis or Harker, rather than going to a mid-level private school. When kids prepare at a height outside of class, does this impact the attention in class for public school? It depends, Robert. So, like, if it can, but at the same time, that's what parents are willing to do, because if they make the school easy, if they feel like school's easy, then you're obviously doing something right, right? So if you're taking these outside of courses and then their in class is just review, then that's definitely a good thing. Like you shouldn't not want that, right? That just means your students a little bit ahead of core curriculum. And then if you're worried about that too, that'll all end in like middle school once they start introducing like more advanced routes or more advanced classes that their student could take. So that's mainly only a problem in elementary school. Yeah, so the Think Academy teacher just typed in my phone number, and then you could add me on WhatsApp or WeChat, or you could text me directly. And then I'll also type my email if you guys have any questions, or if you have anything that you guys may want to contact us about. I just typed in my email right now, so it's going to be Jimmy Human at the Think Academy if you have any questions. Do you publish private school acceptance rates to specific UC schools anywhere? Yeah, Robert, if you want to give me a message, I have a lot of different I have a list of the acceptance rates for all of these for a bunch of different private schools along with public schools. So if you want to send me an email or a text message, I could definitely send those over to you. And then again, here, if you guys do have a lot more questions, it's easiest to contact me through WhatsApp. So if you join our Think Academy Bay Area group today, I'll reach out to you and then you could ask me questions there as well. You're welcome, Kai. Thank you for coming. In terms of offering AP courses, which public school districts are better? From parents that I've talked to, they say the Palo Alto area and Los Altos and Menlo Park, those areas have a lot of AP courses. But yeah, and also I think everywhere has some really good AP courses. So it just depends on where you live and where you're looking to take classes. Because I know Cupertino has amazing AP course all kinds of different things that in Cupertino, and same with Palo Alto and Menlo Park. So it just depends on the area. But my advice would just be doing more research on the schools themselves. If you're deciding between two schools, you could definitely go onto their website and they have everything that you need to know on there's those two websites. Is there any specific schools that you were looking at, Vamshi? Yeah, Fremont School District is definitely a good district, but better than what school district? American High. Sorry, I don't know much about American High. The Fremont School District is definitely a top school district in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've heard a lot and nothing but good things about them. So you're welcome. All right. Any last questions? I'm going to be taking off here in a few minutes. No problem. You're welcome. All right. I hope everyone that's still in here has a good day. I'm going to be taking off now. So have a good one.